So today's question is, should you play the indie developer game No Way Out by producer and developer blip? I haven't really figured out too much about blip from just Google searching and just looking into them, but it seems like this is the only game they've ever produced. With that being said, the game does describe itself as retro, a psychological horror with heavy themes of exploration. No Way Out came across my suggested for you page on Steam, and it was on sale for about $5.19 with the good old US of A tax slapped on top of it. And I spent around 2 hours of total play on it. And in that time, I was able to 100% complete it. So No Way Out's story is actually very simple, but through some explorations of 7 possible endings, it goes from a simple, am I just farming and this is my life game, into an existential layering, into am I stuck in this infinite time loop, and or will the ceaselessness of my morbid and repetitive existence come to a close. Overall, I do think the game was an awesome dive back into old school games that don't want to hold your hand. Additionally, it's really more of a puzzle game, but with its lack of sound design and muted graphics, it did start to give me that horror feel. There were a few moments where I felt myself looking around my room and taking my headphones off because I wasn't sure if I had heard something within the game, and I had that creeping feeling that there was something watching me. To dissect the game, I created 2 categories, and I named them Who It's For and Who It's Not. So let's dive really into the Who It's For category. So fans of retro-inspired games and indie developers are going to enjoy this game, right? I mean, it's very simple, it's very bare bones, it's not entirely polished, but at the same time, if you liked that era of like the 90s, the early 2000s, or, you know, even games like Flash games and stuff like that, like, it kind of brings that feeling on there, but with today's technology and access into, like, you know, different developer tools, like, it's a lot better than those games in that regard, but you still get to kind of get that retro feel to it with all the modern pieces to it. I mean, like, the game's like a couple hundred megabytes and it installed instantly. It's also for someone who's kind of looking for a quick game to 100% complete and doesn't mind simplistic gameplay. The gameplay itself is not very dynamic. I mean, there's no running and gunning, there's no dodging monsters type of thing. I mean, you essentially use the WASD keys to move around, and then you use the E key or like the left click or the right click of your mouse button. Like, there's not a lot of keys here to be pressing, but at the same time though, it was really quick. I mean, I 100% completed it in 2 hours, and I would say about 30 minutes of that was me being stuck on like ending 4 because I legitimately was missing a piece, and I don't want to spoil anything, but I mean, it's a very, very simple game. You really have to look around, and sometimes you'll overthink things, and that's kind of what will extend the game time. So if you're a good puzzle solver, you're a big like D&D puzzle type person, or you loved old games like Banjo-Kazooie or something where you had to like figure it out, you'll probably be fine. I will say though, it is a game for people who enjoy a more find the story approach and not the story told to them. I mean, it doesn't really have a real conclusion. I mean, I will say that the game has a definitely morbid message to it. But with that being said, you know, each ending has its own little story to it, right? So by doing so, some of them are super simple, and then other of them are very interestingly dynamic, and it actually was almost upsetting, right? Because you want the real answers to what's going on in this little world that Bodhi had created, but you don't really get them. So I will say, if you're definitely one of those people that likes to find the story, it's enjoyable. And then the last, you know, Who It's For category, I would say it's a game that should not be looked up or try to like look up a guide or anything. The solutions you really should discover for yourself. I was super tempted. I like clicked on a guide because I was getting so frustrated, and I saw an image but no explanation, right? And I will say that that was like ending 5 or something like that for me. And I will definitely say it didn't cheapen it for me because I was in that room and I was legitimately missing it. But with that being said, right, don't look at a guide because you'll go from like a 2-hour gameplay to like literally like 15-20 minutes if you're just following a guide. So if you like to really have to sit there and get frustrated and really figure things out and try again, definitely for you. So the other category I would want to go into is Who It's Not For, right? So the easiest one is someone that's looking for an action title or even arguably fun gameplay. The game does pride itself on the puzzle itself and not how you get there, right? I recently played The Evil Within, and you know, one of the feedbacks I had for that game was that like the game itself was ridiculously fun. I had a lot of fun playing that game, but I, didn't initially really feel a connection to the story. I felt like it wanted to be a big story game, but it was focusing more on fun gameplay. This is like the complete opposite, right? Like this is about the puzzle. If you're looking to like press a bunch of buttons and run around super fast and stuff, don't play it. The next piece I would go into is it's someone looking for the most bang for their buck. I did want to be objective here and say that $5 for a 2-hour-ish experience is very fair in today's world, but there are other games where $5 could get you 20 plus hours, right? So, I mean, there's games like Stardew Valley that go on sale and stuff like that. I think I bought it at like $7.99 and like I bought it again on my Switch, right? I have played that game for like 40 hours plus between the two platforms, and I spent $7 for it. This game, on the other hand, I spent $5 for it and I got 2 hours. That's like going to a Tuesday movie night deal type thing at your local Cineplex or something, right? This is more, I could see someone saying it's not really the best $5 they spent in terms of other gameplays, but for other forms of entertainment, I think it's fair. But if you're tight, I wouldn't grab it. And then the last piece I would say is that anyone who likes a game that is polished and perfected. This is a very rough game, and it does have a lot of shortcomings in terms of graphics, gameplay, and I would say even the story, right? The story is not going to resolve itself. I would describe it as art housey, right? This is your indie film festival style film, right? This is more about enjoying the experience, kind of coming to your own conclusion. If you're somebody that's like, I don't need that type of stuff, tell me the story and that's it, you're not going to enjoy the game. So kind of just in a closing statement, I think No Way Out is a great addition to a retro game run, and it's a great game to really stimulate your mind. I mean, I really was sitting there trying to figure out, was I doing something wrong? Is the game misleading me? It's a lot of like, you can overthink yourself into the situation. I am curious to see what Body may come out with next, because the solutions to the puzzles were fun and there was dark humor, that wasn't wasted on me. I definitely appreciated that. So, other than that, thank you everyone. If you have played No Way Out or look to play it, let me know what you think, because honestly, I thought it was a pretty decent title and I think it deserves definitely more player bases. Thank you. Bye.